Hello and welcome to WION, World is One. I'm Kanishka, Sarkar, and today let's talk about the Iran war. It's been 2 months since the war started. A fragile and indefinite ceasefire is now at play. However, the war impact is not just a regional story. It's a global economic stress test. The West Asia conflict has exposed how tightly connected and fragile the global economy remains. Even countries far from the conflict felt the impact through higher energy prices, disrupted trade, and inflation risks. The key question that emerges is, what should economies learn to better prepare for future geopolitical shocks? Today, we look at what broke, what held, and what must change in how economies manage risk, trade, and energy. To understand all of this, we are joined by Mark Brolin, geoeconomic and geopolitical strategist and author. Hi, Mr. Brolin. Thank you so much for joining us today on WION.
Pleasure. Nice to see you.
Right. First, let's talk about the equipment that was used in the war and its impact. How do you see, has the drone era of warfare, has that changed the cost-benefit analysis of protecting global trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes, it definitely has, and in a major way. And we saw that first in the Ukraine-Russian war, when we have seen that Ukraine has managed to stifle the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, using the same thing that Iran is using now in the Strait of Hormuz, by using drones, cheap drones, and mines, land mines. And you can use, this concept of mosquito fleet is, of course, coming back. And we have the Ukraine mosquito fleet with small vessels. You don't really know what they are doing. Some of them are just smuggling stuff, and they are doing it in the Black Sea by just putting. Some of them are putting missiles into the Black Sea, and we're seeing the same thing in the Middle East now. So absolutely, it has changed in a major way. And I think that was the major analytical mistake before the US started bombing Iran. They didn't think that Iran would be able to do what they have been doing now in the Hormuz Strait.
Right. And you're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that continues to face disruptions and oil prices have spiked because of that. Now, that does show us that how dependent the world still is on a few critical routes. Do you think the world economy overestimated how secure global energy systems really were?
Yes, absolutely. That's also one of the big lessons from all this upheaval. And we have, there are only like 6, 7 straits like this, and many of them, unfortunately, are in the Middle East. And now we know, and because of what we just talked about, the mosquito fleet scenario, when it's so cheap to actually create destruction, this has turned into a bigger problem than it was only a few years ago, before drone warfare was as effective as it is today.
Right. And Mr. Brolin, beyond oil, this conflict has disrupted supplies of fertilizers, helium, and key industrial inputs as well. Do you think the world has ignored the hidden dependencies in global supply chains?
Absolutely. I think we have, perhaps you can see it as corporate interest groups. They have trumped the security concerns in so many countries for a long time. We have not really planned. Few countries have actually planned for war the way it used to be. So in one sense, we are going back to the state that has been natural for hundreds of years, because security concerns have, throughout most of history, been a big thing. But over the last decades, we have actually played down the possibility of even having a war, which we now know was a major mistake. So I think that this supply chain, just-in-time thinking has trumped everything else, and now we are paying the price.
Right. And it's not just a regional impact, right? The IMF has also warned of a potential global recession. Which specific second-order supply chain failures do you think, the ones that we just discussed, pose the greatest threat to industrial stability in 2026?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, we have the, if energy costs, they feed into transport, food, fertilizers, and all that thing. So of course, if we have this scenario with ongoing inflation leading to weak demand, that is the perfect stagflation. That's like a textbook example of stagflation. There is one offsetting factor, which makes many people talk about this as a 1970s scenario, but there is one offsetting factor, and that is the AI revolution, which actually hopefully leading to higher productivity. We can actually already see that happening, and it could go on in a major way. So that it has offsetting effects, but it's not enough. It's still, I mean, this thing playing out right now, it can't carry on. That would be a big threat, one of the major threats for this century. Yes.
Right. You were just talking about stagflation. Let's discuss the macros. Now, central banks, they're now dealing with inflation or recession risks. Again, this was just when rate cuts were expected. Do you think policymakers now have fewer tools to handle such kind of shocks?
No, I don't think they have in a way. I mean, central banks, they can handle demand-driven shocks by adjusting inflation, but they can't. They are totally helpless when it comes to supply-driven shocks. So I think central banks, their role is sort of minimal when this happens. Marginally, they have to do some things. But central banks, it has proven that supply shocks, they really are as helpless as again, the textbooks have been saying all along. Correct. So that remains a big worry as well.
Right. And Mr. Brolin, what about shipping costs? They have also jumped and routes had to be diverted. That's adding time and expense to global trade. Do you think this implies that this just-in-time supply chains, they're too risky in today's world?
Yes, they are too risky, but we're also seeing recalibration in a major way with all the friendshoring and all that stuff. We can see that countries, everyone is sort of readjusting their partners. So some countries that are natural friends will stay much closer. That's all the talk about the blocks building. So it's not that globalization is not going to carry on, because it is. We have the ties, commercial ties, keep building actually, even during war. So it's too much to say that globalization is scaling back, because it isn't. But we see that the different countries are intensifying their partnerships, right, blockwise.
Right. We have discussed quite a few problems, but what do you think? What new international mechanisms must emerge given this crisis? This to provide credible peace guarantees for global energy markets?
Yeah, I mean, if Iran, if the biggest, the best thing that could happen, I mean, for the world economy right now is actually if the Iranian regime falls, and if it brings in democracy. That is a positive scenario, which is not totally unthinkable. And if that happens, we will have a different. The Middle East will be more stable than it has been for centuries, actually. But then again, we can't really know if that's going to happen. And right now, it seems like they are digging in and doing it quite well. So, but things can change. We have had many black swans events. I mean, it's always turning natural with black swans events, paradoxically. But something of that nature has to happen to minimize the risks going forward.
Right. I would also like to shift focus to India. Now, if this conflict remains at neither war nor peace stalemate, what do you think are going to be the long-term prospects for the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC, as an alternative to traditional maritime routes? What lessons should countries like India take from this?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think that's a question every country is posing now. And I think we have many of the answers already. The countries have to be more self-reliant, have to diversify energy supply and trade routes and all that kind of thing. And also we have to do what we talked about before. You have to pick your partners more carefully. And I think India is doing all that in a way that satisfies markets. I think there is one lesson for all countries, and I think is that we have to be more long-term. All countries have been very short-term, but thinking like supply months away only, and that is the wrong thing to do. And I think many are miscalculating now. The US, it's still the biggest market in the world economy-wise, and it's still the innovation center of the world. And everyone is pointing to Trump and saying it's destabilized, but Trump only has 33 months left. So I think it would be a mistake for Europe, for India, and other potential partners not to go together in the democratic world. And we have to think beyond Trump, and that the US could be more stable trading partner again. And I think actually India is already sort of changing the Western world concept, because it used to be, of course, the transatlantic partnership, but now we have India as well. And commercial ties, not everyone wants it, but commercial ties are sort of building. So India, Europe, and US are moving together in a way that has, this has been a process going on for decades already. And I think that is going to carry on. And I think it definitely is going to carry on post-Trump. Even now with Trump, this development carries on, just because all the theater in Washington is not as important as what is happening in the US tech hubs and in the Indian tech hubs, for example. So I think actually even now, despite the political pressure not to cooperate so much with the US, the ties continues to tighten between the US and India, and also with Europe, actually. And I think that's a good way for all these three different parts of the world.
Right. You were just talking about the Western concept, right? So lastly, do you think, is the world moving away from globalization towards friendshoring?
Yes, we touched on this before. I think we are doing that. But then again, if the US, Europe, and India are becoming are moving closer together, you can say that that's a global development as well. But I think not so many countries will want to work with Russia, Iran, and possibly even China, to the degree that has happened before. So it's also, you can say it's an insular globalization moving forward. And right now it's upheaval and all that kind of stuff. But I think we have to adjust what we talk about when talking about friendshoring, definitely. But globalization concept, I think we can't be too black and white about it, because I think the democratic world is actually moving closer together, and I think it's gaining the upper hand, not least because India is such an integral part to it now, and it's the only country which is still growing so strongly. So India is actually shape-shifting the global order more than any other country on the planet right now, and I think we talk too little about that outside India.
All right. Mr. Brolin, thank you so much for joining us with all of those insights on the lessons that the global economy has learned from the war so far. Thank you for joining us today. On that note, we'll let you go.
Pleasure.
All right. As the West Asia conflict continues to evolve, the global economy stands at crossroads. So the lesson is clear. Geopolitics is no longer a distant risk. It's a direct economic reality. The real test now is how quickly economies adapt to a world where uncertainty is the new normal. I'm Kanishka Sarkar. I'll take your leave, but don't go anywhere. More updates will follow on WION.